Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're heading to the airport again and we'll be flying with Singapore Airlines from Melbourne to Singapore on the world's largest passenger plane. The A380 is such a behemoth and it is so heavy that runways had to be rebuilt so that it can land on it. And that's because that whenever it lands, it's bringing down the force of 2.5 times the weight of New York's Statue of Liberty. It's truly a piece of engineering marvel that this thing can even take off, and I can't wait to get on board. So welcome to our trip report for SQ228 flying business class on board the super jumbo jet, the mighty Airbus A380. It's been a while since this super jumbo jet has been back in Melbourne. And despite not flying to Melbourne the last 3 years, these A380s were parked right here in Australia. And that's because during the pandemic, Singapore Airlines A380s spent most of their time sunbathing in Alice Springs.
Nothing this big has ever landed in the Alice. A thrill for local plane spotters when the Singapore Airlines A380s touched down this morning. More than a dozen planes are now sitting in a storage facility at the Outback Airport, with more coming.
Now I for one am glad that my toilet paper hoarding days are over. Now apart from toilet paper, I've also hoarded some Krisflyer Miles. I was able to do this using American Express's reward transfer system, which allows you to convert 2 Amex points into 1 Krisflyer Mile, which then can be used to redeem any flights on Singapore Airlines.
Mr. Toh,
how are you?
And as a result, today's business saver ticket costs only 91 Aussie dollars and 68,000 Krisflyer Miles. Now, if you want to learn more about the Amex reward system, please click on the link in the description below.
Hello.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Airlines. How are you today?
Good, very
So
good, thank you.
grab that bag before you hit the jet.
No worries, let me grab it back. Thank you.
Where's our final destination?
Singapore.
Singapore?
Yes.
Toh is the surname?
Toh, yes. Spell it backwards, it's hot.
They've got your surname as Hot. Oh, it's Hot.
Yeah, I used to spell it wrongly as a kid in kindergarten.
Now, one of the perks of flying business class is that you get a 40 kilogram baggage allowance. You get an additional 20 kilograms when you're a Krisflyer Gold member. Now, in my case, I was slightly over 40 kilograms, but this kind and very funny gentleman let me through.
Yes.
Do you know where the lounge is?
Yes.
No worries. They'll be waiting for you there and they'll let you know when it's time to board.
Thank you very much. All checked in, yeah?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
All
Thank
checked
you.
in all the way through to Hawaii.
Hawaii, no! See ya. Bye-bye.
Now, as I'm one step closer to being on board the Big Bird, let me tell you a little bit about our flight. SQ228 is a daytime flight. It departs at 3:40 p.m. and it arrives into Singapore at 9:30 p.m., which is just nice for you to wind down your day and go to bed. It doesn't messes around with your circadian rhythm, so you'll hardly feel any jet lag. The check-in time for SQ228 starts at 12:40 p.m. and because it's lunchtime, you can leisurely make your way to Melbourne Airport, missing all the hustle and bustle and the hot mess that is Melbourne's early morning traffic. So, if you're looking for a daytime flight from Melbourne to Singapore that doesn't require you to wake up at an ungodly hour, this will be the perfect flight to get. And also, on a perfectly cloudless day, you might even catch a glimpse of Uluru on your flight out.
He said, I come from a
Now, before we get to the flight experience on board SQ228, let's take a look around the Silver Chris Lounge at Melbourne Airport.
Hello, how are you?
We'll make a boarding announcement when our flight is ready to board.
Very good.
There we go.
Thank you.
Pop through to the business class lounge.
Now, the business class lounge is really tiny and gloomy, so be prepared to feel a bit claustrophobic, especially on an A380 flight. There's a small cafeteria by the corner that is well stocked with a decent selection of drinks and alcoholic beverages. It also has a variety of cold and hot foods to satisfy the taste buds of the usual Singapore Airlines frequent flyer, which means it caters for both Western and Asian flavors. And I particularly love it when nasi lemak is served here. But today it was just rice, chicken teriyaki and beef stroganoff, which is a weird combo for sure, but it works for me. The lounge area isn't particularly big and grand, and everything feels very packed. And that's mainly because of two reasons. Reason number one is because we're flying on an A380, and the entire upper deck of this A380 is dedicated to first and business class seats, which means there are more people in this lounge, twice more than what they would usually cater for. Now, the second reason is that Melbourne Airport chooses to house most of their airlines in the basement, where there are low ceilings, no exterior windows, and even less room for expansion because all the other airlines are also competing for space. So you know how sometimes when they say Sydney is better than Melbourne? Well, in this case, the Silver Chris Lounge in Sydney has more room, and it feels more like a proper Silver Chris Lounge like the ones that you will visit when you depart from Singapore. And it feels spacious even when they're catering for the Airbus A380. Speaking of the A380, I think it's time we get onto the Super Jumbo and find out what the flight experience is like.
Thank you so much, Mr. Toh. Across to you now.
Thank you.
Now, when you're flying first class with Singapore Airlines on board the Airbus A380, you'll get a chance to stay in a self-contained suite, which comes with its own Emperor-style drone chair and a separate bed. This is the most prestigious and luxurious seat that Singapore Airlines offer, and it's only available on the Airbus A380, which is why I tried to sneak a peek of it when walking into the plane. Now, also, only available on the Airbus A380 are these business class seats, which I reckon offers the most privacy of all the business class seats on Singapore Airlines. Now, with this seat, you'll get plenty of legroom, and you're also allowed to store your luggage underneath here, since there are no luggage compartments over your seat, which now gives you plenty of headroom. The new cocoon-style design with wings motif is what gives this seat extra privacy over the other business class seats offered by Singapore Airlines. All you need now is a small door, and you'll have yourself a mini suite on board. There's a tray table built into the side console, and if you need to charge your laptop, there's also a 110-volt power outlet. For other devices, you could use the USB port underneath the headphone jack. And for when you want to check if there's anything between your teeth after meals, there's also a vanity mirror here. In front of you is an 18-inch monitor, a hook to hang your jacket, and some more storage area. Now, you don't get a separate bed like on first class, but what you do get is a seat that turns into an angled lie-flat bed at a touch of a button. This means that whenever you feel sleepy, just hit that button and the seat turns into a bed. Gone are the days where you'll need to stand up half asleep and work out how to turn your chair into a bed. Thank you, Singapore Airlines, for getting rid of those chairs. Now, before we get too far ahead of ourselves and go to bed, let's talk about that world-class service from Singapore Airlines. Now, while Singapore Airlines' Krisflyer Lounge in Melbourne Airport may be a bit mediocre, the Singapore Airlines cabin crew and the level of service that they provide, well, that's legendary. Let me tell you why. I once had the awful luck of losing my Apple AirPods inside the panels of the business class seat. The cabin crew helped me look for it by disassembling the chair, and they did this twice. And when I had absolutely lost all hope of ever seeing it again, another crew member offered to help me look for it one more time just as we're about to land. And lo and behold, he found it. It's a miracle. Now, I think the Singapore Airlines cabin crew genuinely cares, and they really go above and beyond to help their passengers.
Thank you, Jason. Lifesaver. Appreciate your help. Singapore Airlines always the best.
The service that you're going to get with Singapore Airlines, regardless of which class you're flying in, is definitely always going to be world class, which is probably why they keep winning these. And today's flight experience is pretty much the same, in keeping with the high standards that Singapore Airlines sets. And as soon as you have settled down after reaching your seat, you are immediately greeted with some welcome drinks.
Would you go for orange juice or some champagne? Maybe a Bellini?
In the Bellini.
And the Bellini?
In the yes. Holiday mode. Oh.
Enjoy, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, the other part of the pre-flight experience used to be hot towels. However, because of the pandemic, they have been missing. And if you've been traveling on other airlines this year, you have noticed that hot towels have already made a comeback. Hopefully, Singapore Airlines will bring them back soon.
Cabin crew to your takeoff station.
Now, while Singapore Airlines may not be giving out hot towels anymore, they are now offering unlimited complimentary Wi-Fi to everyone on board as long as you have a Krisflyer ID. The speed is probably not going to be good enough for you to watch an entire series of Game of Thrones, and they do block you from accessing YouTube. But I found it good enough to post a recent video of our snow trip onto Instagram.
The 2-week-old unrefrigerated pie. Dumb ways to die. So many dumb ways to die.
Now, having free internet on board is pretty cool in my books because you get to do a little bit of work and you get to update your loved ones on your arrival. But if you prefer to have an internet detox, well, simply just don't sign in. And there's still lots of things to keep you occupied, like dinner. Now, after doing some light editing and posting stories onto Instagram, it was time for dinner. And for entree, I had the prosciutto melon greenalis with lemon dressing. Admittedly, the dish itself is not much to look at, but the prosciutto and the melon was a great combo, really refreshing when paired together. And for my main meal, I had the Kerala spiced chicken biryani, and having missed out on the nasi lemak back at the lounge, this was exactly the South Asian cuisine I was looking for. And to finish off dinner, I had a chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream with some fruits for desserts. Overall, the dinner service was really good, lots of dinner options to choose from, the crew is very attentive despite having an entire upper deck of business class guests to look after. But more importantly, the food was delicious and filling, especially my chicken biryani. Now, before I get too sleepy from all this delicious food, let's check out the toilets in business class. Now, one of the things that you would rarely find on a Singapore Airlines business class flights are these. Singapore Airlines rarely gives out any amenity bag kits, which means you're out of luck if you like to keep those fancy toiletry bags as souvenirs. But if you just want some amenities, just visit the toilets, and here is where you'll find them. You'll get toothbrushes, razors, a communal facial mist spray, hand lotion, and eau de toilette, which is French for toilet water. Don't worry, it's just perfume, or more accurately translated, lightly scented water. The business class toilets here may not have the same square footage as the ones in first class, but they are clean and they share the same functionality. Now, one of the highlights of this particular flight, Flight SQ228, is that you get to fly past Uluru on your way out of Melbourne. Uluru is the third most famous landmark in Australia, right after the Sydney Opera House and the Harbour Bridge. And yet most Australians have never had the chance of seeing it in person.
Crikey!
And this is because this massive sandstone monolith is situated smack right in the middle of this huge country, which is like a 25 hours drive from Melbourne. So most Australians have probably only seen Uluru from postcards or on TV. So if you want to be one of the rare few people that get to see it in person, albeit very briefly, may I suggest taking flight SQ228 because Uluru is on their flight path, and because it's a daytime flight, and if you're lucky enough to fly on a cloudless day, you might just get to see this massive structure in all its glory. Now, before we landed, we were offered some refreshments, and this time around I opted for some roast duck noodles. And if I wasn't full from my chicken biryani earlier, I was indeed very full now. The 8 hours on board this Airbus A380 really felt too short, and I've only managed to sneak in a 30-minute nap just before we land into Singapore. I really wish we had more time, but I guess time flies when you're having fun. And thank God this time I didn't lose any AirPods.
Cabin crew, please prepare for arrival.
Thank you for joining us on our trip back to Singapore. We hope you've enjoyed our trip report. Singapore Airlines flies to Melbourne daily. There are currently 4 daily flights at the time of editing. The airplanes that they use for SQ228 do change from time to time, so you might not get the Airbus A380 experience that we had today. So do check ahead before making your plans. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Thank you so much. You guys are always the best. The best.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.